Hello, Lou. Here's a kind of brief breakdown of what's going on in the racks. So at the top, of course, you've got a power conditioner with a light. It's fairly understandable. The next three U's are the Solid State Logic X Patch. So basically, the traditional patch bay is fine, and this is basically what it is. It's a patch bay, but it's digitally switched. So there's actually analog switching that goes on, physical switching, but it's controlled by software, which is handled inside this computer here, this touchscreen here. Every piece of equipment runs through this X Patch. It can be configured how you want. So some of the pieces of equipment aren't generally online, so you basically switch them in and out through the X Patch as and when you need them. Below that, we've got some Neve bits and pieces here. So we've got the 8803, which is the 2-channel EQ, Neve EQ, and below that we've got the 8816, which is the Neve 16-track summing mixer. Now, this can be used as a standalone mixer, and you can have what they call the fader pack, which gives you faders for it if you want to add that to it. Some studios just use this as their front end mixer. The reason being that it's got the classic Neve sound on the outputs, not on each channel, but on the outputs. Also, there's a very interesting width. I think it's this red one here. Is a width effect on it, which by all accounts is second to none, and there's some studios just buy it for that, which is kind of bizarre. But it's 16 tracks. So basically, to switch the 16 tracks in, you go into one of these boxes here and you simply switch it to the summer, and it puts all the 16 tracks through the Neve, and then prints a left and right out of that. So that's what that's doing. And then below that, there's another summing mixer here, which is the SSL summing mixer, which again is the part of the X-Logic range, so it's kind of a modular range. You've got the classic SSL bus compressor, which we have that patched in if you need it. So on these two ones here, you can switch it within the X Patch and have your 2-track left and right running through that if you wish. And then the next three modules here are the summing mixer. There's 24 tracks of summing that can be used there, and I had a couple of slots left, so I put in an SSL preamp in there and an SSL, I can't remember what I put in there. I think it was a compressor or something in there. Yes, a compressor, an SSL compressor in there as well. So they are about. Below that is the Antelope Sartori monitoring system. Again, works on the same principle as the SSL. It's actual physical switching, but via software. So if you actually press a button, you can hear it actually switching. You can hear the click, and that's it actually switching, internally. Very high-end monitor system. The Apollos stuck on the bottom, black face and silver face Apollos. I've got a Aural exciter with the big bottom, the Aphex 104, is it? Yeah. Great little thing if you want to sort of put a little bit of sparkle in on the top end, or a little bit of extra oomph on the bottom. That's kind of a handy little thing to have. And then the computer itself is right at the bottom. It's a Mac Mini, and it's put inside a rack, because inside the rack there's some PCI cards, which are further UAD PCI cards, which bolster up the Apollos. Plus there's a satellite link to this as well, so you've got a lot of processing power within the Apollo system for various plugins, which I think we have about 87 at the moment, UAD plugins. So these switch units here, they basically move 16 channels, I think, or 8 channels at a time. They switch from one path to another in one block, and then they're used for these summers. So when the outputs from the Apollos, when they play out, they either go one way or the other, and that's directed through these AB switches here, which can channel them from the Apollo into the Summers if you need to do summing, analog summing. I will say it makes a massive difference when you do analog summing. It's something else. That's why I bought the Neve and the SSL in, because they both give different flavors, and they're the two classic flavors that you get. You know, the SSL is really your clean pop vibe, where your Neve is your 70s rock kind of thing. You know, you have Black Sabbath on the Neve, and then you had sort of classic disco and pop through the SSL. That's what they're famed for. So that's that rack. Going across to this rack, we've got mainly preamps in here and the headphone amplifiers. So Tascam, we've got 8 outputs for going out within the routing through here and into the various points within the studio, and you'll see that on my YouTube channel thing, and I'll probably put this video on there as well, might as well. Next up, we've got the Universal Audio 6176, which is a 610 preamp, which is the classic preamp that Bill Putman, who was the man from Universal Audio, it was his first preamp that he made, and this would have been around in the late 40s. You would have had Nat King Cole and old Blue Eyes himself. They would have used the 610, so it's a classic vintage preamp. And linked to it, you can link it or unlink it with these things here. You've got 1176 compressor, which I'm sure you know all about, so that can be unlinked or put in as a separate standalone compressor. Below that is the 428 Focusrite preamp, which was put onto its very famous mixing desk. I think they only made 6 of them, and these are the preamps that went on that, and they're basically a Neve design preamp. They're excellent. And below that, we've got a very early, I'd say late 40s, early 50s Marconi 4-channel into 2 mixer. It was initially designed for outside broadcasts for the BBC, and they have germanium, very early germanium preamps in them. At the moment you can get 2 channels in, or it's just best to use it for 1. It's got a very vintage sound to it. It takes a while to warm up, and then it sounds pretty good. I think I will eventually make 4 separate preamps with it, so you'll have that going. Below that is your stage tuner, Korg stage tuner, pretty standard. Next up, another power conditioner at the top. We've got a couple of CD players, and then we've got the bass pod, which is just a general plug the bass in and away you go sort of thing. A couple of amplifiers for the monitors, and then we've got a Plexi Marshall, which I don't know what happened to it. It stopped working, but we need to fix that, because that's going to be your main amp for the aux, which is set on the top. So you'll go into the Marshall and then into the aux, and then you can adjust what you need to adjust. Up the top, we've got some other preamps. You've got the 710, which is a great little all-rounder, and then you've got the Audience 16 tracks of that. And then here we have the remote for the Sartori, which is a handy thing to have, and that's run from the app on there, and also the Matrix is on there. Monitoring, Adam, the A77Xs, and then the Genelecs with the sub at the bottom for it, and the NS10s, and the what we call Auratones. This is an AKG version of the Auratone, which is basically AM radio mix. If it sounds okay on this, then you're doing all right. Similar situation to the NS10s. If it's sounding okay in those, then you're on the right path. But that is, yeah, that's the racks.